we spend the vast majority of our time inside of buildings. So we have, as architects, we have this incredible responsibility. We design a new school. I mean, that's impacting how thousands of kids for the next 50 to 100 years are going to be learning.
The following is a Big Sky Economic Development production.
It's Mars B.
And Cavo.
And this is The Vault at 201 North Broadway.
A business podcast.
Where we bring you entrepreneurs, small business owners, and community leaders of Montana.
To share their stories, expertise, industry insights, and strategies.
And we are sharing them all with you every single week.
You don't want to miss this.
Learn how to better start, manage, and grow your business.
And your leadership style.
Tangible takeaways to save you time and improve whatever it is that you're working on.
You're listening to The Vault.
Thank you to Big Sky Economic Development for supporting The Vault at 201 North Broadway. Big Sky Economic Development provides leadership and resources for business creation, expansion, retention, new business recruitment, and community development. If you are starting a business, growing or expanding your business, diversifying your customer base, or maybe you're looking for business trainings to attend to continue to learn and grow, they're excited and here to help. Even if you're thinking of relocating your company into Billings, they're a resource for you. BSED also provides resources for community development initiatives by planning, partnering, and managing projects and administering grants for redevelopment and placemaking. Their workforce development program brings together industry and education partners to anticipate and respond to community workforce needs. And they provide talent attraction and retention resources for your business to use under the community brand Better Off in Billings. BSED's Rock 31 program is focused on helping startups thrive. And in their location in downtown Billings, they have 2 floors dedicated to co-working and additional spaces throughout their building open to the community to host their meetings, events, and trainings. Visit bigsky.economicdevelopment.org. Again, that's bigsky.economicdevelopment.org, or follow them on Facebook and LinkedIn. Nick Pancheau in the studio. I've been wanting to have you on our podcast for quite a while, so we're just going to jump right in. And I was reading your bio on your website, so I thought that would be a really interesting place to start, is your childhood and how you grew up.
Yeah,
I was very intrigued.
Yeah, absolutely. Born and raised in Billings. My parents are like just this awesome picture of consistency. And my dad was a contractor. And so I grew up around construction. Really every summer the project would be like Dad would buy a truck. And instead of playing in the yard, your summer project would be like your job is to take the truck apart. So my brothers and I grew up just with this constant immersion in construction. And it's a kind of upbringing that in the moment you look at it when you're in high school and you're like, my friends are all, they're like, we're going to go bridge jumping or, go to a party. And I'm like, I got to help Dad work on this particular project this weekend. So when you're growing up, you feel like you're missing out on some things. But I look back now and it turns out like in college, the ability to like not go out and not ski and not have hobbies outside of like just really liking to work is a huge benefit. And I look back now and I'm like, how can I give my kids some growing up experience kind of like I had, where they have this opportunity to not just, play is good. I appreciate play, but some opportunity to learn to work and develop work ethic.
Mm-hmm. That just is so intriguing to me because it's just similar, I think, is why I was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting conversation, because I'm guessing like especially as you got into high school, like you and your siblings were maybe some of your dad's most reliable employees in the summer. Maybe not, but I'm going to guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There was always a summer job and it was always, construction related. So we got this, he's an electrician, but when you run your own business, there's all kinds of peripheral things that you have to do. Equipment breaks down. So you're fixing equipment, you're building a shop, and he made, like one summer he was going to build a spec house, and it's like the first day of summer we showed up, and he's like, meet me here at this location. My brother and I got there, and he handed us a set of house plans, and he said, the foundation's in the ground, the trusses will be here in an hour, call me with questions. And he left.
Oh
So,
my God.
like that summer, my brother and I framed a house, and we almost killed each other multiple times. And
Are you
it
guys
took
close
us,
in age? You must be.
yeah, a couple years apart.
Okay.
And then we have a younger brother that's a few years behind us. But, it's just like experiences like that. I look back on now and I'm like, man, that is just pure gold.
Well, it's such problem-solving skills
Absolutely.
that your dad just gave you there, because he was like, call me if you have questions, but the expectation is
Figure
probably
it out.
like, figure it out, don't have questions.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I'm busy over here.
Right.
So is your brother older or younger?
Younger.
Younger. So you're the oldest sibling.
I am.
Which I think is something interesting too.
I'm a middle.
Kayla's a middle child.
I'm weird. I'm one of 6, and we're all
You've got a lot of
separated
siblings.
out, and yeah.
So now that you're an architect, and that's like what your schooling path was, what were some of those moments, like as you got into maybe middle school, high school, that maybe were influential in that track?
Yeah, I think, there's probably a few things there. And as I look back now, I think that this constant immersion in construction throughout my whole life more than likely led me in that direction. Although, there was a point where you either kind of want to either follow in your dad's footsteps, or we did a lot of things with cars. So it's like, I want to be a mechanic. And my dad, who came to Billings from Glendive and started going to school in an automotive school that then burnt down a year after he started.
Oh,
No.
And so he I guess he just changed paths and went to work in an electrical shop and became an electrician. He said, hey, maybe he thought we couldn't, but he's like, if you guys can make a living with your mind, I'd love for you to try to do that if you can. And then you've always got all these skills to, in his mind, fall back on. So he wanted us to have an opportunity that he didn't have to get that, that secondary education, post-secondary education, and go out and try to do some of these things. So, that was a shift. I had to say, okay, well, if I'm not going to do that, I need to go to college. And what can I study in college that's going to align with the things that I already like to do? So architecture kind of was a perfect blend of that. I loved art, loved to draw, loved drafting in high school. So it's perfect combination of a construction background, art, drafting, and studying architecture was amazing because for the first time in my life, it's like you're going to get rewarded for doing this thing that you absolutely love. So if you spend all your time doing drafting in high school, all your other grades would suffer. In architecture school, it was like, no, you actually get the more time you spend
that's
on
actually
this.
better for you.
Yeah, there's no finished product. It's not like in any particular assignment, finish it. There's always more you could do or more you could add. So you were actually really rewarded for spending more and more and more time and making a more and more developed project. So
did you drafting class in high school? Is that what that was?
yeah.
And
yeah.
so what would you do? I did not grow up with that. So it's very foreign to me of a drafting class and what you would do in that class.
Yeah, Mr. Long at senior high, phenomenal teacher, technical drafting. I mean, he came out of technical drafting background. I think he was drafting refineries,
Yeah.
right? So he would tell us these stories of making these drawings that where the pipes have to match up from sheet to sheet, and everybody had to, there's this intense collaboration. And to me, that you don't really understand what he's talking about when you're, 16, 17, but it was really intriguing. And I just loved that class. It was literally you're drafting with a slide rule and, pencils and leads.
Wow,
and
okay.
learning to do technical drafting exercises. There's a textbook and it's draw this axonometric cube with the corner missing. And you draw it and he would look at it and it's oh, you faked this part. Go do it again the right way.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay. And so then you chose Bozeman.
I did, yeah.
Was that because of the programming or proximity?
I think it's a little bit of all those things. There's architecture schools in, obviously, University of Washington in Seattle, and then you come across to University of Idaho in Moscow, Bozeman, and then you go all the way over to NDSU before you hit another architecture school. You can drop down to the Colorado area. But I did go to NDSU in February, and their selling point was we have tunnels. between the buildings.
Oh,
And
gosh.
it's like, I don't
You didn't
know if
want
that's a
to
selling
do a
point.
Fargo
Yeah.
winter?
Yeah, I don't. If that's the selling point, I'm not buying.
We have
is
tunnels.
hilarious. So you stay warm at least.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess. It was really between University of Idaho and Bozeman, and I just didn't like the idea of not being able to come home back to Billings over a weekend. So that proximity was so huge.
And it sounds like you're close with your family, so that would have been a nice thing. And then if your siblings are still there, you can go to their extracurriculars if they were in those in school.
Or dad
and be part
needed
of that.
your help.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, summer job.
Summer job was close.
Continue working there.
But what great experience to have that really did help with that, because you understood how then it was built, like what that work would do that the architect does and how it translates into actually building.
Yeah, you'd study kind of this heady design concept during school where it's architecture school is much more about teaching you to think than it is about teaching you about exactly how buildings work, although there is some of that. So you'd get kind of this heady kind of theoretical approach during school, and you'd come back for the summer and it'd be this very practical. We're putting walls up, we're framing them, and then you go back to school. So the kind of this back and forth, constant immersion in hindsight, is really just fantastic for what I do on a day-to-day basis now.
And it sounds like Bozeman was a really great fit, and you really enjoyed the programming out of the gate.
Yeah, loved the programming.
It was a good fit.
I couldn't tell you much about there's these spam emails going around right now that the spam person will say, "Hey, I saw that you went to MSU. Gotta ask, Big Sky or Bridger Bowl," and I want to respond back like I never went to either of those places. Like I don't know about what life outside of Cheever Hall in Bozeman was really about.
That's fun. That's funny. Big Sky, Bridger.
I didn't know that was a scam going around.
Yeah, you should probably not respond.
Okay.
Because then it'll,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
And then you graduated, stayed a little bit longer.
Yeah, architecture in Montana requires a master's as part of the licensing process. So it's at that time, the other attractive thing was MSU and Bozeman had a 4+1 master's. So 4-year undergrad, and as long as you did the prior 4 at MSU, your grad program was 1 year. So huge cost savings. Most other programs were like a 4+2. So it was 5 years there in Bozeman. Met my wife there, got married, and then we honeymooned by driving the coast from LA up to Seattle.
Oh wow!
That's beautiful.
And we got to Seattle. And I was like, man, I could see us maybe living here. So that's what we did.
And you went over. Okay, so how long were you in Seattle then?
Like a year and a half. Like surprisingly short, far shorter than I imagined at the time.
What made you transition back, or did you come here after then, or did you just find another opportunity and move somewhere else?
The Great Recession was a formative part of my career. Yeah, so it was like the firm was hiring. All those firms in 2007, 2008 were hiring at just such a ferocious pace, and got hired there. Probably at the peak. WAMU fell. Like 6 months after I got hired there. And I remember you'd be at the bus station listening to Wall Street Journal this morning, and they'd be talking about, layoffs. There's layoffs, we're watching New York City, huge firms, layoffs. And you'd actually, week to week, there'd be fewer people getting on the bus. So it was like this really
crazy.
Visceral thing. And
this is reality.
This is reality. And the firm, every month or so would have another round of layoffs.
So then you're constantly stressed out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the most stressful, perform, or you could be one of these, people that just, that gets let go. And ultimately, the firm's work mix was more or less exclusively multifamily housing, and the financing dried up for that. So for me, it was a fantastic education, because in those last, few months leading up, the firm, you knew what was going on. It was there was no question. And, it was a great education in watching all the partners market and watching, where do architectural projects come? I'd never cared about where an architectural project came from prior to that. It was just like, you give me, I don't have anything to work on. You give me another project. Here it is. It's magic.
And here I'll take care of it.
Yeah, I can draw these lines. It was a fascinating education in economies. And ultimately the firm came back and said, we don't have, we're just going to like shut the doors. Like no one has a job.
Fascinating thing to go through.
Yeah.
Like to be like, well, I just did school and I'm like newly married. I'm young. I'm like ready, eager to work. And you're like saying, we're shutting the doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that brought you guys back to Montana.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, but also like for
Terrifying.
me, I'm feeling such anxiety for you at that time. That would
You're
be
in
such
Seattle.
a hard thing to go through, especially because you're starting your life with your wife and your, whole new place. And, then you get that notice and you're like, well, now what do I do? And we go back home.
And from that, did you start then so you guys came back, and was it collaborative right away? What was that like for you when you came back?
So it was, there's a part of it that was swallowing my pride, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of like, grew up in Billings, and then you're going to go like see the big city and be somewhere else. The thought process is always like, oh, I'll come back someday.
Yeah. Like I have to get out. I have to go.
But I'm going to see the world a little bit and see, some of these other places. So there was like 6 months or so where my wife was carrying us. She was substitute teaching, taking a different assignment every day. And I was at home just like filling out resumes and submitting resumes to like any firm anywhere in the nation that was maybe hiring. And, just crickets, nothing. No one was hiring. And so I finally, I guess I swallowed my pride, and I knew that Jeff Canning back here in Billings, I went to school with his son at senior. He said, hey, if you're ever going to come back to Billings, make me your first call. So I emailed Jeff, and he said, hey, I'm going to be in Spokane next weekend for a wedding. Let's meet for lunch. And I guess the rest is history, right?
Well, it sounds, yeah.
So it was great. He hired me. I think the balance of the partners were less than enthused that they didn't get to interview me prior. And and it's been just a great fit.
So that makes it sound easy, but now you are, if I'm not mistaken, principal in charge, architect, and president. So that doesn't just happen overnight.
Yeah.
Looking back, and there's that large chunk of time that, yes, you were hired, but you had to do a lot of things, I would assume, to be given responsibilities and leadership roles. Can you talk a little bit about some of those things that led you to be where you are now?
Yeah, no, I think it's so in hindsight, this going through that recession and seeing that happen firsthand, I think that piece played maybe a bigger part than I ever in the moment. That's like the worst thing that you can imagine happening coming out of school.
Yes.
You lose your job. But over the course of the next several years, the firm that I came to, Collaborative Design, was in a growth phase. We had done really exclusively one type of architecture for 30 or so years, and at the time that I landed there, we were beginning to branch out and kind of leverage all of our private sector experience over into public sector work. And I had just come from this firm that was, I learned how to market. I learned how to put proposals together, learned how to respond to RFQs, RFPs. So that experience, really, and if I look back now, my day-to-day, what I do now compared to a lot of what I have been doing over the last number of years, really, yes, there's some more responsibilities, I guess, but it's not changed really drastically. It's just kind of so as the firm looked at, okay, what's the next chapter? What does the next leadership piece look like? Those skills that came for me really directly out of that experience seemed to fit what we were looking for.
What would you say is your leadership style now that you hold some of these very high positions? How do you lead your team?
Probably poorly at times. That's probably the fair answer. We're in a phase now where we're able to build systems really from scratch.
Yeah.
So coming from a smaller firm and trying to transition into more of a mid-sized firm, we're able to kind of rethink how we approach and how we do architecture from scratch, and that's been really enjoyable. So we've been building those systems over the last 5 years, give or take, and beginning to roll those out. So I guess my leadership style or approach is really I'm understanding the problem. I'm looking for what the desired outcome is, and then I'm trying to design solutions through, a systems-based approach to result in those outcomes that I'm looking for. So really, as the leadership style is I need to have my hands and arms around all those issues that are happening within the firm, those pain points, whether it's on the client-facing end, or how our team produces documents, or how our process runs internally. Develop the systems to run each of those pieces, and then put people on our team in charge of each of those individual pieces, and then just continue to check in and look at the feedback and look at the outcome that we're getting, and then go back and tweak the system itself to try to hit that desirable outcome.
Oh, that's awesome.
So very much of a systems, which I want to get to that in a little bit with some of the things you talked to our leadership team about. But as we're talking about teams and building in those systems, then you have people that use the systems. Something you talked about in that session with us that you did was how to be a good employee. It was like something that you listed to us that was a recommendation to look at or read. But to you, what are some traits and characteristics of a good employee that you look for when you guys hire?
Yeah, I think, so like there's this first piece that's you want some passion about the profession or the role. And I think sometimes people get through school and make their way through school, and it was, something they did, and they realized, I don't really even really like this. So I think, any profession, to be a good employee, there's that kind of base level piece of like, you need to like the thing that you're applying yourself to. And then beyond that, I think a good employee competently completing tasks as assigned, I think is like a base level, right? And then there's like the great employee. And, I think that's where you start to see, and that's where I love to kind of analyze what that distinction between those two is. So, I guess for us, it's employees that are really focused on, understand the systems, kind of understand the framework that we're working within and trying to deliver. And then they're always looking to elevate that end customer experience. And then also in turn, what that creates for us is as we elevate that customer experience, we're seeing them iterate and improve the way that we deliver the service internally. So that's where we see innovation and development internally, which is really fun to see. And
bettering those processes and systems, constant improvement, constant growth for the client customer.
Yeah. That if we're improving every single time, and that's kind of the product is not static. I think we're always, and I think that's part of how we think as in our training as architects, is that a document set is never done. You could always draw more, and at some point, schedule and the financial picture, intersect, and we've got to say, completed the document set to the degree that it will be sufficient for the task at the time. But I think everybody that's really engaged in that process, like, I could have specified exactly where I wanted that fastener in this wall on this panel. So when you've got a group of people that think in that way, you take that thinking and you apply it back to the overall process. And then you see some inherent, conflict between the systems people that just, the system's done, it's fixed, we love it the way it is, and it could be better. Let's push the envelope, let's make it better.
So it kind of sounds like it's like that person or people within the team that are always thinking of like, how do we level up? How does this process level up? How do I level up within the system to better service the client? And it's never really good enough, right? But absolutely. It's not. There's always a better way to do it.
Which you kind of touched on when you were in school. You're like, I could always add more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it would be better, and I would get even more points because it would be better every time I did it. So, yeah, it kind of is interesting that it continues on with you.
So I imagine just with the different portfolio of clientele that you all have, and then if you're responding to those RFQ, RF, et cetera, you guys have a lot going on, and you have teams, you're all doing different things. I imagine everyone's working on a couple different projects at once, maybe not, but that's what I'm assuming. What are some things like weekly processes that you have that keep you organized and on top of all of it? So for those listeners that are maybe newer or they're in leadership roles, how do you manage all of it?
Yeah, no, I think it's
And personal life too. I mean, like that work-life balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a number of things that I'm doing now that are helping from that standpoint. I think, again, that's never perfect. I think that's an ever improving system from that standpoint. But from a team standpoint, start there, just on the collaborative team. Start every Monday with all team meeting at the it's not the conference table now, it's the kitchen. The team's outgrown the conference table.
So you guys need a bigger space. Okay.
We're in the kitchen area, and it's we burned down the entire list, every project that we're currently working on status, and that keeps the whole team in tune with where do we have deadlines, where are the stress points in the week going to be, which people on the team are going to be pressed for time, and how can we support them, or clear a path, maybe pull some work off their plate to make sure that they're delivering in the best way they can. It also helps eliminate some conflict. If I know this person's, they're going to be cranking and they feel like they're maybe a little bit pressed on time, let's just make sure we carve out a little bit more space for them to do their thing and get done. So that's kind of that's the structure we use internally.
Do you lead those ones, or do you guys kind of share the leading responsibility?
I typically lead those, but as we go down the project list, each person that's working on that particular project reports out. So we get a really good feel. Everybody at the table knows that when we get to that project that you're working on, you're reporting out, and the team really responds well to that. They take that seriously. Here's my list. Here's the deliverables for this project this week. These are the things I need to hit. This is where I'm struggling. Might need some more help here.
Yeah.
So if you've got someone that's available, it's where we can kind of air all those things out and try to pre-vet any issues we may see.
That sounds like it would be, just for the work you guys do, that would be just really helpful to make sure every week we're all coming in, we know what's going on, and we're staying on top of it.
Well, I would just like to commend the knowing that when you were talking about how you have some employees that have hard deadlines and you want to make sure that you're carving out some extra time for them, that is just unheard of to have that, because most of the time it's like, oh, you've got your projects, get your projects done. Where you see like, hey, it's probably going to be a little bit stressful of a week for them. Let's take something off their plate so they can do the job right. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, they've got all these different things, and how do they do all the touch points on all of them for the week? So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think overall it works well. Obviously, it sounds way better like in podcast form. Right? I mean, the reality of business and running a business is all, when you're in it, it's like we often relate it to like I'm in a raft going down a river, and
it's white water.
And you can't stop. Like you can't
jump out.
Like the client's deadline is like the most important thing. Hitting that for them, making sure that we're delivering on our commitments there. So, they're not just you can't just like stop all the individual clients, say, wait, guys, we just need a little bit of a timeout so that we can readjust and think here. It's a real time moving thing that has real impact for the client at the end of the day. So
I like that analogy.
From a leadership standpoint, it's something that we have to keep a constant, finger on that pulse, and you can't just say like, oh, it looks like it's going to be bad, and then
leave it.
And then leave.
Like, what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it?
So it's it's a lot of kind of working with the team and working with the different principals and understanding. Okay, I know you say you have this particular deadline on a project. Is that an internal deadline, or is that external client deadline? Where do we have room? And do we have room that we can allocate a few more FTEs this week on this project if this team really needs some help getting something across the line? And that's kind of how we look at it, as we've got our fingers on that pulse all the time. And just when you think you've got it figured out and it's perfect, and it's like, all right, this thing is dialed, the phone rings, or something else
happens.
Comes
you
up,
get an email,
a waterfall comes up, and you're like, how? How do I?
And you just got to, you have to make that decision, and then you've got to adjust, and it's that adjusting piece and kind of that constant keeping in touch with the team and understanding where people are at. And I think that's where we thrive and succeed.
We see that with a lot of businesses, and Lorene and I coach that in the SBDC is you have to be in your business and you have to be with your employees in the trenches, understanding, every part of what your business is doing, or it can quickly get away from you. And so then maybe it is one of those situations where you're like, yeah, this is a bad situation, and you don't have the tools or the experience to fix it, versus you might have been able to stop that before it even got to that place if you were just in the business knowing what was going on. And so it is very important, and we always push that, like, it's not going to be a 9-to-5 job. It's a 5 to 9 job when you own a business, and you have to be in it. You can't just expect somebody to run it for you.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where leadership in those situations has to be decisive. And you're going to make the wrong decision at various points along the way, but you've also got to instill confidence in the team and a lot of times I think there's that experience piece helps so much because we've been through something like this in the past. We adjusted in this way. The outcome was, analyze it. Was good, bad, indifferent. And then that helps how to, and it gives you some confidence. And I think that's, for us, that's how we grow. That's how we get the confidence to take on the next project or next typology that maybe we haven't done a lot of, this typology before, but this past experience in doing other typologies where it's been a stretch has prepared us for this. And we know we've got the expertise to get there. It's just going to be operationally, what do we have to change? How do we have to be flexible along the way?
And how exciting, like when you do those and then they're done, you can look back and it's a nice success. I mean, you reflect on what could we have done better, but if you don't know until you do it, and it's an exciting win. So some things that you guys do as a team, it sounds like you do that staff meeting, that deep dive, and letting everyone give their update from whatever level they're at so that everyone's aware. Are there other things? And then what are some things that you do? Because I know you have a schedule that I have taken some things from that training, like I mentioned, that I've implemented and found some success with. So would love to hear that.
Do you have nifty tricks that you're going to share with us today?
I think he does. And notes in the phone. I've never used my notes like I do now.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I know,
use
it's
notes
crazy.
all the time.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Need to be better about labeling them, because then I have to
I'm good at
search through
labeling.
them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there's such tangible things that I think are easy for listeners to take and make a huge difference in their week.
Yeah. So something is relatively new, probably shouldn't be. It's helped, I guess, maintain my sanity a little bit, and some of my team members in the leadership side is just weekly check-ins with some of the staff that we're running on projects, and having those on the calendar scheduled as a dedicated time, and really prioritizing that as a sacred time that we need to make sure we hit and do together. I've been not as consistent as I should be on those, but I've got some partners that have been great in doing it, and it's been really good staff feedback on those as well. Each of those staff running a number of different projects, all at different phases, from early conceptual design all the way through things in construction, and just to have dedicated time that we can touch base on all the projects across the board, even the new ones that have been dropped in your lap, and get some understanding of where we're at, where we're going. Those help us, I guess, more deftly kind of navigate the change when it comes and when it hits. So I think we'll continue to use that tool from a project management, individual project management, or that's like personnel management.
Yeah.
Where those individual people are running a number of individual projects.
And then it gives them time. I think I do that with just the few people I oversee, but giving them time to ask questions too, and help them find the solutions maybe to some of the problems that they're facing that week or that they see coming up.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it really gives that folks time, and it reduces, I guess for us, it reduces the just kind of number of trips from, or interruptions on that principles part as well, where you can be relatively sure that, hey, we've got our one-on-one. Most of the questions are going to get condensed in that time. There's always going to be other things that come up.
Yes.
But at least we've got this spot where we can talk about things, and I know that I've got some time with you to hit these particular issues. and it's not just a constant kind of revolving door. And I think when we get into that phase where your office is a revolving door of people just continually coming in and asking question after question after question, we probably have to question the systems that you've got in place to manage those things. And so one of those tools for us is that weekly check-in, and it helps the leadership get focused work time as well.
Which I think is really important, especially as you get busier and other things are coming up. You're a busy guy with family too, and setting in those blocks for professional development, working out, things like that, which I think you do, right?
I mean,
on your
like,
calendar, like your calendar blocking of gym.
If we're talking
reading.
about,
That's what I want to get into. I want to get into the details, Nick, because your calendar, which I see it, you have good things in there that are helpful. We want the details.
Yeah. If we're talking about working out, like,
well, didn't you? I feel like you had time on your calendar for that, right?
yeah, like having it on the calendar and actually doing it.
It's two different things.
I don't even have mine on the calendar,
right?
And I do it. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm very regular. If once a week could be considered regular.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, that's a routine.
It's a routine of sorts.
weekly.
Not aspirational. Yeah. So from a just a time blocking standpoint on the calendar, I try to align the times of day that I'm most productive, and I guess fortunately maybe it's biological, right? That I'm most productive first thing in the morning. So coincidentally, I really like, sometimes to my wife's chagrin, I like to get out of the house early, get to the office early. It's a time that on my calendar, it's blocked from like 5:45 until 8:30 as time that I'm just, it's focused work time. It's also a time that staff typically isn't, they're not needing someone. The phones typically aren't ringing during that period. Emails, quiet. So it's just become this really sweet time daily that I can focus on kind of these deep work tasks that I really need to get done. And those change from internal organizational tasks to individual, a particular project deadline or something that needs to get pushed out, to just other general prep. The only thing that interrupts that time is Steve.
The BSED board meeting?
Yeah, for the BSED board meetings.
Yes, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was just about to make a comment. I was like, well, once, maybe twice a month, you are definitely bothered.
Here at 7 a.m.
Yes.
But I think that deep work time is what it sounds like it is, where you can just really focus on those things that you need to focus on without some of those distractions that come up.
Yep, absolutely.
At random.
Yeah, so that's been really successful for me. I think I've done that for the last 2 years, and it's just been
it's stuck?
Pure gold. Yeah, really good. That way, I do block the noon hour and ask, I talk to our team, whole team at the beginning of the year also just about that. Hey, we could reduce conflict, like inter-office conflict, significantly if you're going to be out and your preference is to work out at lunch, and you're just expecting everybody else to know that that's what you do, and to not schedule meetings between like 11:45 and 1:30, and it's not on your calendar. Like, you're just asking for conflict, and that would happen. Our senior partner Jeff is like the most consistent guy in terms of working out, the best role model. I have zero excuse for not working out on a regular basis, because I could literally ride to the gym. I'd have a free ride to and from the gym every single day of the week.
Oh, because he goes at that time. Yeah, okay.
Noon Y guy has been for like 100 years, and he's not even that old. But people would schedule meetings, like at 12:30 or like at 1 o'clock, and he's like, guys, I'm not coming. I'm not going to be back from the gym, by then. And on occasion, there's a client need, someone really needs that particular slot, so it does happen. But having the team be aware of that, getting it on the calendar so that when I go to pull up, all our calendars are shared through the whole org, so I can, if I need to schedule a meeting and I know these 3 people need to be in it, I can just click on their calendars, look and say, yep, we've got this slot open. Everybody's expected to keep all the stuff on the calendars, and that just helped immensely. So yes, I do block out the noon hour to hour and a half, give or take. It used to say workout, right? I think now it says no meetings.
Yeah. Which is good. Either way.
It gives you options.
It's still saying,
it does give me options.
do I need to do some more work? Do I
Right.
need to go to the gym?
You don't have to feel bad if you don't go to the gym because it says gym and you didn't go.
Right. I tried some kind of personal manipulation a couple of years ago with like the messaging that it was telling me on the calendar.
And it didn't.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
I have to put everything on the calendar. I won't remember what I need to do next. So my calendar is just messy.
Mine is too. I don't put the gym, but it's in the morning. So I am pretty routine about that.
I don't put
Even board
personal
meeting days,
things.
I'll go.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have to
I just
get
have
up
to
so
go earlier.
early?
I don't have kids though, and I live right by the gym. Like it's a block away, so
I have
it's
dogs, and they're like kids, and
I have no responsibility like that, so it's
They
easy
have
for
a
me.
hard need to be fed at a certain time in the morning, or they will eat my arm off.
So what else is on your other things, calendar tips? I just think there's like details like that are so valuable.
So I get those scheduled check-ins, punctuate the week. I think getting those at a time that works, mutually beneficial for both people, I think is good. I've had some out of sync in the past where it's just like, man, I'm just finding that I'm in a deep work state every time this meeting hits, and I just don't want to go. So
It's like having that self-awareness.
That's been some good self-awareness where I've got to cancel that slot. Let's shift this around. Let's make it so that it's a more consistent time that we can make sure we're hitting. That's been good. I mean, obviously my world is punctuated by regular recurring project meetings, and those will be for maybe 6 or 8 months at a time that you've got a weekly owner, architect, contractor meeting on the construction of a particular project. And when we start to see those hit, we also start to pack those days more with that type of meeting. So for me, Tuesdays is like it's a packed day full of regular recurring meetings, but that's also given, Thursdays or Friday afternoons. Now those become these really great open work times that I can really focus. Or you can take, if you've got, a marketing meeting or, a sales opportunity, you've got those afternoons really open as well. So it just provides me a little bit more sanity from a scheduling standpoint.
Flexibility, just kind of packing those days and then working off of what you need to do from those Tuesday meetings. I've tried that. Yeah, I actually have tried that too. I think probably from the meeting with you, and I just think it's been really helpful just to and buffer time too between those. But
I guess the other things, I've got a couple times a week that are like personal professional development that are blocked. Those are like a peer group of architects from around the nation. Each group is focused on a different topic area of the profession, different people in each group. Those are just really great times to be able to bounce off. Here's the particular issue that I'm working through right now. What would you guys do? So those have become, over the last couple of years, has become a really important part of my week that are just a regular block that's in there.
I like that a lot. I think that's nice to see, especially like from a leader and then as your organization. So you're still like staying current and learning new things constantly.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that I've been doing is just color coding like everything. And it changes with different seasons. Like office management is red, and like kind of like personal development time might be gray. Or when my wife invites me to, like the gymnastics, on Mondays at 5:45 or the piano or the violin, like all these different things, like those get dropped on there. They're in their own color, so I can just quickly visually look at it. B-said is orange.
Yep, thank you
so
for orange.
Like always,
Keep with the brand.
Always know when those meetings
B-said
are.
is orange. That's really great.
So that's helped a lot as well, because it's just then I can, quickly. I'm not like, my schedule's not crazy enough that I have to use the day view in Outlook. But I do the week view, and then just really quick visually, I can look at the week and say, all right, I know about what's happening this week.
Just based on the color.
Yeah, individual projects, they may be, Intermountain Health is like the kind of fuchsia purple color, right?
For their color.
Yeah.
They're purplish now, I think.
Yeah.
Well, purple pink?
Yeah,
I think.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, something like that. So with that professional development, are there some books or podcasts out there that you really like and go back to as really big, just things that you really like topic-wise that you refer back to a lot, or you think that have made a big impact on you?
Yeah, there's a few. I guess the one that's like on regular repeat is the Life of an Architect podcast. Bob Borson out of Texas. Just great, like all manner of architectural things. But I don't know, he leads that podcast in such a, like, I guess, down to earth way that I wouldn't be surprised if his listening audience is a whole bunch of non-architects as well. So I think there's just like some episodes there where he's just talking through like really real things in the course of like career development, professional development, that yes, they're specifically about architecture, but you can strip that architecture away pretty easily. You know, like his podcast episode on like a great employee.
I think that's the one that you shared with us.
It was like awesome. Like, you know, you can take architecture out of that equation and that can be any old job, and just really, you know, great perspective that I'm able to glean from that one. And then there's also the nerd out parts of that one where we're talking like specifically about red lines or, you know,
but you could be like, just push through that,
skip that
make
one,
it applicable to yourself or learn something new. Yeah. I think that's really great. One question I have for you, another one. How does architecture shape your worldview and travels? It's kind of switching gears.
Yeah, I like that. I guess my faith persuasion leads me to not believe that architecture can solve all the world's problems, right? And I think, you know, I worked for some really great architects in the past where, you know, like I think they're sold out on that idea that architecture, you know, done right, done perfectly, can solve the world's problems. And you know, and I think there's whole schools of thought on that. And I'm not there. I guess I'm more down to earth and practical around that. But I would say that architecture has this really incredible ability. You know, we spend the vast majority of our time inside of buildings.
Yeah, we do.
And so we have, as architects, we have this incredible ability, responsibility to shape how people live, their wellness, their health, their experience during their everyday office life. You know, I heard someone talking about, you know, if you design airport bathrooms, you've got like the number of people you're going to impact over the course. Like that's so much bigger than the number of people you may impact designing like custom homes, right? And both of them are important within the scope of architecture. So, you know, I think that piece for me, in terms of how it shapes my worldview, is where it really lies. Is, you know, we design a new school. I mean, that's impacting how thousands of kids for the next 50 to 100 years are going to be learning, and
their memories.
All their memory bank is going to be inside of this particular gym, shooting hoops.
That's a good place. Yeah, I have very fun memories of mine. But.
Yeah, it's just so that ability, that responsibility, obviously it hits pretty heavy at times. You're like, man, this is design these things and they're around for a long time.
And they're making big impacts. I mean, there's so many people that spend more of their life in the school than they do even at home. If they're really involved with sports or extracurriculars, plus your school day is long, like you spend a ton of time. We spend a ton of time in this building.
Oh my gosh, all the time.
Like a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I guess that's kind of how it shapes the worldview to some degree. And then I guess how it shapes travels. I mean, there's a concept of like architourism.
Oh yeah.
And so every architect knows, you know, that, and they're going to plan trips around specific. I'm not at the point in my life with kids, age, all of those factors where we're not traveling a great deal. Although any trip anywhere, including to downtown Billings, is an architectural excursion. You know, at some point, you know, we're looking at the Mason's Lodge, you know, building, and we're looking at the egg and dart carving on the stone, you know, that was done at the turn of the century with my daughters. You know, you see this see how that's a repeating pattern. There's the egg and there's the dart in between.
And they'll never be able to look in a building the same way ever again.
Exactly. And looking at the, you know, the scrim detail on the Alberta Bear across the street. So yeah, I think every time, if you take a group of architects to a city, we typically try to get the whole staff to an AIA national meeting every few years. So we've taken the whole staff to, you know, including admin staff, to Vegas and to Denver and to Philadelphia and to Chicago a couple times. And, you know, so when you're on those, it's like, yes, we want you to go and get the education and sit through the sessions. But we really want you to go see, like, there's, incredible architecture and beautiful art museums to go look at, and, just be in awe of this particular set of details. Like, how did they, like, let's just sit and sketch this.
Those bridges in Chicago that everyone's just like using across the river.
The old neighborhoods in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Where you're just like, gosh, how'd they decide that was going to be a style?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and just kind of like thinking through these things. How did they pull off that particular detail? We used one of the trips. We were in Philadelphia, and it gave us an opportunity. Like, hey, if you can, let's flex up to New York, and so now you're in New York, and you're looking at just great examples of architecture that you've seen only in history books. So yeah, absolutely impacts. I've got a staff that loves to travel, and they do a great job of seeing places all over the world, which is really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. Because Billings isn't old. Billings is really a young city. So even the East Coast and all of the history and architecture there, and then if you're going into Europe or Asia, Africa, all of those other places, just the different styles. And I think I'm sure you guys can look at a building and know what, decade that was built in or year it was built in-ish.
I unearthed some of my old architecture history books the other day, put them on a shelf. And like out of the architecture history book, we had this professor, Ralph Johnson, that would, like, the test for the final test for Arch History 2 was to draw each of the, so it was like 35 buildings or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Covering, the span of architectural history. And you'd have, write the year built, the architect, and draw it. So studying for the test was you'd practice, quickly sketching out this, particular building, and like that test fell out of the book, and I was able to show it to the girls, like look at this, what a fun test! Isn't this a neat test?
So fun.
Well, and I think learning the history, because some of those main structures are still happily standing.
Absolutely.
People tour through them, like the Colosseum, just like how ancient that is, and people walk through it every single day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Thinking about that, which is
interesting.
interesting.
Well, it's also crazy that, like you were saying, like these buildings are around for 50 or 100 years, or in some cases, there's structures that have been around for centuries.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see how they were built, and back in that day, built so sturdy. And so that would be really intriguing to be doing, like, how did they do it to make it that way?
And the lives that it still impacts.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fun to see your eyes light up when you do talk about your job. So what are some other, like, some things that you just love about your job?
Oh man, love about it's, I mean, over the last several years, the job's changed a little bit, right? So moved from being a lot more architecture to a little bit less architecture and more business. So right now in this phase where I'm a little bit more focused on the business side, it's the same problem solving process. And I guess that's what I really like about that. And I think that's why I'm, maybe drawn to it, is you learn how to solve problems. And what I'm finding is, man, it's just the same, whether we're solving a problem on how to program a building and what the space adjacency is within a building, how do we hold it up, what kind of coordination needs to happen inside of that to make all that work and look the way you want it to look at the end of the day. We're doing the same thing on the business side, and we're doing the same kind of detailed coordination, understanding all the parts and pieces. That's the core job of an architect. It's more than just like, we're going to set the vision for the building, which we do. You set the vision, and then you manage the whole team of people, consultants, different professions to actually pull it off at the end of the day and make it look the way that the vision that you set out at the onset was. So yeah, I guess that's for me, that's what I really enjoy about it, is this coordinated process, like a dance kind of throughout the process as you move through, and the building starts in pre-design, and it's squishy. Everything's squishy. Spaces are easy to move and mold, and they could get smaller, they could get bigger. Just the click of a button. It's a kind of like formless mass, or the building lives entirely in a spreadsheet. It's just areas in a spreadsheet, and you just, throughout the process, you're iterating and you're kind of bouncing those pieces off the group. And, okay, is this right? Do these function? Is this how you want these spaces to relate to one another? And as you move through that process, it gets harder and harder and harder. And then it's like, these are hard line walls on a piece of paper with doors in very specific locations. And now we get to talk about all the systems and where are the lights and where's each switch and what system delivers the warm or cool air throughout the building.
And where is that vent? Because I'm guessing you guys either think of it daily, but you have to think about how people just the normal things of how people, where they go to look for a light switch, where they look for a power outlet, all of those things that your team has to really think about specifically in each room.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that piece to me is just it's so fun and so rewarding when you see it all come together. So I'm redlining some drawings right now. It's kind of this final QA QC before the package goes out and it's bid by contractors. And at that point, that's the contract documents. I mean, it's the thing that you're going to make some legal agreements with your contractor about. This is what you're going to build at the end of the day. So, working through redlining that, looking at how it's all come together. Did we keep you go back and you look at the early schematic design rendering, like this was the vision. How are we doing? Are we matching up? And what's really fun is when you see it actually, like it's better. Like it's better than the original concept. And then you get to see it built. And then you get to test that against, well, does what's built look like the final construction documents? And does what's built look like the original concept? How did we do? And then how can we tweak the process along the way to make sure that it's better, even better the next time?
And it's like really good and finished. Another quick question. So you're very involved in a very different organizations and different things here in Billings. You're on our board. So what are some things that excite you about our community here in Yellowstone County and within your industry?
Yeah. Billings is a great place to live and to raise a family. And I think back to when I married my wife. I think
is she from Montana?
She's from far southeast Montana, okay. halfway between Baker and Ekalaka. So, almost
Willard.
There's no town.
Okay.
Like it's just like I think the ranch borders North Dakota. So it's just
okay,
way over there. We college in Bozeman. Where do you want to live? And she's like, I could live anywhere. She'll help me. She'll hate me for saying like this. I could live anywhere in Montana except for Billings.
Interesting. Okay.
Because when you're coming through, you just the experience is the interstate experience coming through town, and it's industrial. Billings is industrial. And after living in Seattle, I said, hey, what if we moved back to Billings? And after living in Seattle, she was like, yes, absolutely.
My bags are packed. The boxes are good. We're good.
And she loves it. She loves it here. Now it's a beautiful place. Kind of there's not another place quite like it in really kind of the West. I mean, the rock, the rims that we have surrounding the city, how quickly they rise from the river, vertically, right there. It's just a really striking setting that we get to live in. So I love that. I love the collaborative development that's happening in Billings. I remember growing up here thinking, you think like, well, how much bigger could the city get? It seems like pretty big already. It doesn't need to be. How could it grow? And I just blown away by, I think people are discovering this place, seeing, it's such a great place to raise a family. And now I get to be part of that continued development and shaping what the place looks like. So I love that. And then I guess I want to echo what Lily Corning said, I think 3 years ago at our annual meeting.
Okay.
Is Billings is a place that you can have an impact. Like it's just at that right size that you can land here and actually kind of, you can be involved and shape you can know the mayor. Like you
I
can
know,
actually
he can call you.
Yeah,
He
right.
has.
Yeah. You can like
who am I to be
recognize-
talking to the mayor?
Yeah, you can recognize the mayor on the street, and it's just really neat to live in a community that's that accessible, and that you can really be involved in helping shape. So yeah, I guess that's where it's at for me.
I really like that, and I think we talked about it on a different just solo episode with the two of us, because aren't from Billings, but we've moved here and felt like if you want to be involved and you want to make an impact, you can.
Well, there's plenty of opportunities for any professional, but young professionals especially.
Mm-hmm.
So many groups for them to be a part of and get to know individuals. And so, we both had different reasonings for getting involved in young professionals groups. But for me, like my job told me I needed to do it. I also had moved here and had really no friends. It's hard as an adult to make friends. They don't tell you that as a kid.
I'll tell you a lot of stuff about being an adult.
But getting involved, we were able to help other young professionals build confidence and get connected and, grow themselves. And it was an amazing group to be a part of. And I can't, say enough about it. And like I said, we have a whole conversation that we talk about it in another episode, but there's in Billings, there's no excuse. You can't sit here and say that I can't get involved. There's nothing for me, because there's so many groups. If you have a hobby or an interest or a passion, there's something here for you to be a part of and make an impact. Like you were saying, it's so accessible.
I had guys in my office going to apparently this exists in Billings where you can shoot shotguns at clay pigeons at night with I don't know if they were a disco lights or it was neon lights or it was something like that. And apparently this happens on a regular basis.
Wow. I had no idea.
Disco clay shooting. And
I didn't even know that was a thing in general. Who would have
Not at night.
It's like axe throwing. Who would have thought that that's a thing we could do?
I love that axe throwing. It's actually a ton of fun. If you haven't been, I highly recommend.
It's very good.
Yeah,
it is fun. Yeah,
it's a little wonky at first, but then you get used to it and you feel amazing.
I took my brother, who's just a little bit, he's just younger than I am, obviously a lot taller, bigger guy. He loved it.
Yeah.
He was like, this is so great. Why don't we do this more? And I'm like, guess when you come up, it can be my
now
incentive.
you can take him disco clay shooting.
I might be a little scared to take him to do that. But anyways, I think Billings has a lot of opportunity too for career growth. And it's something I definitely appreciate. Nick, it's been so great having you on. We're going to take a quick break for a sponsor message. And then we have some fun rapid fire questions we like to ask at the end.
Great.
Thank you to the Small Business Development Center for sponsoring The Vault at 201 North Broadway. The Small Business Development Center offers free personalized support from business plans to financial projections and beyond, empowering small businesses to thrive. Reach out to us at bigsky.economicdevelopment.org. All right, welcome back. I will go ahead and kick off our rapid fire questions. What are some non-negotiables in business and life for you?
Oh man, that's a hard question. I guess I could boil it down to faith, family, friendships, and I suppose business. Those are kind of the four quadrants of life that are part of my part of every week. Sunday's church. That's a not non-negotiable. That's something I grew up with. I want my daughters and now son to grow up with that as well.
He'll be so taken care of, by the way. All those sisters. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
So awesome. Taken care of. He doesn't even know how lucky he is.
A side note, I did see this morning at the Intermountain Health Partner Appreciation Breakfast, they list number of births in Billings at the hospital and then the top names at this local hospital.
Steve was just talking about this.
And my daughter, Eleanor, who that was such a fringe name 10 years ago. That's now number 5 on the list. And I like to think maybe I had a very small,
you were a catalyst.
You were
very small part in helping that happen.
I love the name Eleanor.
So
it's a great old lady name.
It's so cute.
I love it. And when she's older, it's going to be such a classy name. So if she's executive or whatever, president of whatever, such a classy
Do you have
name.
a nickname for her? Or do you just call her Eleanor?
Oh, there's children's books on the number of different nicknames for Eleanor.
Yeah.
I think the goal is to try to call her Eleanor.
Okay.
It never happens.
It never.
I like that. So you're a well-dressed guy. So what's your favorite shoe in your closet?
Oh, shoot. I mean, just had a conversation at the gym today about this very issue. And it's like, what are we going to do without Nick downtown at Desmond's? Because it's a gap now in the market. So he carried Flucho's, a really great men's shoe. And, you could just go to Nick, I need the size 12 Fluchos in whatever the season color. I think Steve wears them as well.
He does. He just got a suit. His last suit he wore it on Monday.
Yeah, whatever the seasonal. Steve always has whatever the season shoe is, the spring shoe. Steve's got it. So I think he
is pretty well dressed. Yeah,
we'll need to fill that shoe gap in downtown Billings for sure.
But that brand you like a lot.
Fluchos.
Okay, yes. Fluchos. That's a fun name.
That is a fun name.
And he was so great. Nick was great.
Yeah,
another Nick.
What is your favorite thing about Billings?
Oh boy, I mean, I think we touched on it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
There's a closeness in the community, and maybe I'll touch on what Bryce said at our with Jones at our last meeting. Big Sky, he touched on this closeness and this collaboration that happens within our market. We're all in this together. Obviously, we're in a tough economic cycle right now where we've got inflationary forces and higher supply chain issues that are causing construction deadline strangeness in the market, higher costs on certain goods that we'd normally see in a different range, and all of that. We're all still looking for this big picture positive outcome for our clients at the end of the day. And Bryce just highlighted that over the last year, he's just seen this incredible collaboration across kind of all these different parts that it takes in the construction industry to make a project happen. So everything from the initial real estate deal to the design team coming to the table to the builder, really working to the subcontractor, figuring out how do we, what can we modify or change to get this down into a range, to banks coming to the table and how can we work on the rate picture. And, we're seeing success. We're seeing, projects move from conception to completion and this team-based effort. I don't know if you're seeing that in other markets. I mean, we follow our clients wherever they're building projects nationwide. And I don't think we see that same kind of camaraderie, and we're all in this together. We're working for big picture common goal that we see here kind of in the local Billings market.
I would say that might be something so magical, and I like to just note that we're the Magic City, right? But so magical about Billings because not only are you seeing it in your industry here, but I see it especially all the time in our food scene. Our restaurants, our food trucks, they're all so supportive of one another. They lift each other up. They don't look at it as competition. They're always willing to partner on whatever they can do.
Our retail boutiques.
Yeah, the same thing with the retail. They shop at one another's places. And so I don't know if it's unique to Billings across all industry, but I definitely see that with our clients working with one another. And so maybe it is just a magical piece about Billings is that you can come here and be lifted up because we're not looking at everybody as competition. We're looking at them as potential collaborations.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'd like to think it is the Magic City.
Yeah,
I think so.
It's magical. Yeah.
We like it. Well, this has been such a great conversation, Nick. Where can people find you? Social media, website, LinkedIn?
Yeah, all the social platforms. Yeah, website's probably the best landing page. CD-MT. Pretty simple.
Is it just CD-MT?
Yeah, it's .com.
Okay. I was like .org. We're a .org. Some people are still .net. Just kidding. I don't think a lot. CD. Got it. That's easy.
Well, thank you so much. It was great learning more about your background and your love for what you do and the collaboration that you do in our community.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Make sure you are subscribed to The Vault at 201 North Broadway, wherever you podcast, including YouTube.
Connect with us on Facebook at The Vault at 201 North Broadway and Instagram at The Vault _201.
Don't forget to visit us at thevault at 201.com and subscribe to our newsletter.
We will see you next time.
Bye.